Welcome to Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Grace.
And I'm Erin, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction book to see if they're a five or a flop.
Our theme for season 4 is Reading Rainbow, so we're reading LGBTQ historical fiction, and this week we're reading Jews, Queers, Germans by Martin Duberman.
And before I have to apologize because I will accidentally do it, I will at some point probably accidentally call it Jews, Germans, Queers, because in my head, that is the order in the title.
Oh, it's because the just sounds go together.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if I do that, sorry.
Well, first of all, I'll say to this book, I am super grateful for having read it, because every year on Storygraph, in addition to the Five or Flop season 4 reading challenge, I do the alphabet challenge, and this gave me Q.
Q?
Listen, I don't read it there are not enough books that start with Q, so if it's in there, I count it.
Okay, that's fair.
So same with X.
We'll talk about this a little more too, but I'm really excited we read this one because I think this is kind of the first of this type of genre.
Yeah, this is a pretty unique book.
So we'll talk about it as we get in. But for now, what's new with you?
Well, as we talked about a teeny bit last week, I have been a bit under the weather, but it's okay because some of what I have been doing is stuff that I would have been doing anyway, such as staying in this weekend, doing my laundry, and watching gymnastics.
Okay, not bad.
Yeah, I was sad to miss Santiago's birthday celebration. Mm-hmm. We've also had horrible weather. Like, we talked last week about all the thunderstorms in DC. It thunderstormed again yesterday, so it's not like I would have been out anywhere. Mm-hmm. So, it could be worse. What about you? What have you been up to?
I feel like it's not what I've been up to, it's what I'm doing this week. But I feel like it's just a lot of waiting around. For example, I got my nails done, and I try to go like every 3 weeks. And this week I'm going, but it's going to be like 3+. So I have like 2 or 3 nails that are about to pop off, and it is Sunday, and I'm not going until Thursday. And also they hurt really bad because I keep like bumping them, and then my hair strands get caught where they're lifting. So I'm like praying. I'm like, please do not pop off. Like, let me make it until Thursday. And then also at work, there's been a bigger push to go in office. And what I usually do is go in early so I can leave early so I don't sit in like an hour and a half of traffic.
Yeah.
But when we have more people in the office, the push is that you don't do that and you stay the whole day and you hit the peak of traffic.
That sucks.
Yeah, which is not great. And like, I understand it theoretically. However, everyone in the office is at a very inconvenient location because a lot of people live in or near DC. Mm-hmm. So everyone has like the same experience of being stuck in traffic. So what I'm trying to do is to eat up some of the time. Instead of going to a solid core class at home, there's a studio right by our office. Oh. So I'm like, well, if I go after work, that's perfect. Except I didn't plan on being there on Monday in office. So I had to join the wait list. So now I'm waiting around to see if I get off the wait list. And I just checked. I'm currently position 4, which I think if I don't get off it by tomorrow at like 11 a.m., I'm not going to get off of it.
Okay.
So we're hoping, but if not, it's fine. Just because I don't want to sit in that much traffic and then come home and have to do a workout.
Yeah.
Well, I'd rather miss the traffic.
I really hope that works out for you, because that would be that's you making lemonade out of lemons.
Exactly. We also have a gym in the office building. And you just have to sign like a waiver to get your ID card to like tap access. Okay. So I am going to do that as well. So I will soon have the work gym as an option.
But that's like, it's better to be in a solid core class because you like it. And then also you have someone telling you like what to do.
Exactly. And it'll motivate me a lot more. Like, I would prefer to do that. But I'm like, if not, I'll get access to the gym. Like, I'll make the best out of the situation. Hopefully eat into some of the traffic time. It should be a little lesser if I'm leaving at like 6:15 as opposed to 5 o'clock.
And anyone familiar with the like DC geography will know just how far away your office is, because last week you said it was in the area of Wolf Trap.
Yes, which is Reston, Virginia, which is it's like 20 miles, which you hear, 20 miles, that's like not that far. In DC in the morning, it'll take me like 25 minutes to go 1.5 miles out of the city, like to make it out of DC.
Crazy. So
wish me luck that I get off that list because I'm really great. And then also wish me luck my nails don't pop off before Thursday.
Well, all right. I'm looking down at the list or at what you're currently reading, and I'm going to make an educated guess and say, is it an audiobook that you were listening to on your commute?
No. Good guess. It was a book I bought when we were in Harrisburg. How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin, which at the time of making the script I was currently reading. I have since finished it.
Okay. Kind of actually same for what I wrote down.
Okay. And I did really like it. I'm now on hold. There's a sequel, which is like which is another mystery book, not obviously, like, they wrapped up the mystery.
Yeah.
There's another mystery, which was, like, hinted at in this one, so I liked that. But what I am currently reading is not on here. I'm revisiting Miss Lisa C.
Woohoo!
And I'm reading Shanghai Girls, which I got from Mackay's bookstore, as noted last week.
We're giving the bookstores their airtime this week because actually that bookstore in Harrisburg was also really good.
I wish I remember the name of it, but I think if you go to Harrisburg, there's only one bookstore.
I'm Googling.
Okay. It might have been like Midtown.
The Midtown Scholar bookstore.
Well, that was a phenomenal bookstore, and I really enjoyed it. One of the more notable Harrisburg landmarks, I should say.
Yes.
But yes, I'm excited to be back with Lisa C. This one, instead of being about two friends, it's about two sisters.
Whoa, so different.
So different. But it's also set in, like, Shanghai in the 30s. So kind of a different era than what I've read of her before.
Yeah, because her other books have been, like, on the more rural side, right?
And, like, more 1800s-y.
Okay.
However, foot-binding still got a notable mention in this one.
Still there.
Because they're like, oh my god, our mother grew up in a different era. She has her feet bound. And I'm like, Lisa, see, all your characters have their feet bound.
That's not different for you.
But yeah, I'm excited. I'm only like 40 pages into that one, but I plan on taking an afternoon bubble bath today. So
wonderful.
I know, truly the best. What about you? What are you reading / have finished since we made the script?
Well, this week, my What Have I Been Reading is sponsored by one of the #1 fans of the pod, my mother.
Oh!
Because she sent me a copy of Taylor Jenkins Reid's new book, Atmosphere.
And you had been burned by TJR before.
I did not enjoy very much the last book that she came out with, the tennis one. Okay. I don't know. I don't really know why. It was kind of like Fingersmith. Like, it wasn't bad, but you can do better.
Yeah, and she has really good books.
Exactly.
Is the comparison point.
And my mother felt the same way about the tennis book. So neither of us were sure that we were going to read her new one, Atmosphere. It's set in the 80s, and it's about the space shuttle program. Mm-hmm. And she sent it to me because she ended up reading it, and she really liked it. But she also said it's really fitting for this season of the pod.
Oh.
Because it's about lesbian astronauts.
First of all, I really want to read that book. Second of all, TJR kind of does have a fitting theme. Like,
yeah.
You think of Evelyn Hugo, like, that one could have been on the pod.
Definitely. I really liked it. It was really good. And I feel like, I'm not going to give it away by talking about it here, but I think she structured it excellently.
Okay.
Yes. I really liked the characters, the main characters. I liked I don't know. I just thought it was a great triumphant return to form for her. So I would recommend putting it on hold at the library.
Okay.
And I'm glad that I've read it and that I read it and finished it in time to talk about it before we finished up this season because we're almost done.
Oh my god, we are so close. This is a penultimate episode. One more thing on Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have a renewed urge to watch Daisy Jones and the Six. And this is because of the whole, like, Stevie Nicks and what's his face,
yes,
like
Lindsay
posting the handwritten notes to each other, and then everyone's like quote tweeting it with like screenshots from Daisy Jones.
Yes.
And I have not seen that show, and I really liked that book. Specifically, I really liked the audiobook of that book.
I've heard that the audiobook of that was, like, amazing.
So now I'm like, I really should finally watch that show.
I never ended up watching it either, which is kind of crazy because I love Sam Claflin. I love that man.
Remember how you went viral on TikTok?
That was my first viral on TikTok.
That was crazy. Yeah, maybe we should watch it. We should have like a little viewing party.
I was going to say, you and I should watch that together. That would be fun.
We would have a good time.
Although
Jen would watch with us. I probably.
Also, I am so behind though. I'm not good at watching like new TV shows. I just rewatch the same ones over and over. I remember in season 2 throwing a huge like fit basically because you got to watch Lessons in Chemistry and I was like, I have to wait until we record the episode to watch it. And and I still haven't. So,
and that was a good show. I like that show much better than I liked the book.
Yeah, and I believe you, which is why I was like, oh, I want to watch. But like again, like I have the ability to watch it, and I just haven't. Okay, let's get back to Jews, Queers, Germans.
Yes.
Would you like to read the synopsis?
I would, but before I do, I'm going to talk a little about the genre. So you have the book on the table. What does it say? It says it's a history novel.
It says a novel / history.
And that is really important to note because as I started reading it, I'm like, did we fuck up again? Is this a nonfiction? Should we not have included this? No, it's kind of like a half nonfiction, half fiction.
Yeah.
Which is A, not something I've read before. B, definitely not something we've done on the pod before. So I think I wound up thinking, despite my doubts, that this was a really good pick for the pod.
I agree.
Okay. Synopsis time. a daring novel situated roughly in the fin de siècle period of 1890 to 1930. Jews, Queers, Germans centers on the interlocking lives of 5 remarkable figures. If I mispronounce their names, I did not look up pronunciations. Prince Philip von Eulenburg, Kaiser William's closest friend, Magnus Hirschfeld, the pioneering sexologist, Count Harry Kessler, a leading proponent of modernism and the keeper of an extraordinary set of diaries, Walther Rathenau, a towering intellectual figure who, though a Jew in anti-Semitic Germany, rises to the position of foreign minister, and Ernst Röhm, head of Hitler's burgeoning stormtroopers. All 5 are primarily homosexual, though they handle their erotic orientation in very different ways. Where Rathenau remains utterly closeted, Kessler feels free to bring his youthful working-class lover to the privileged soirees of the aristocracy.
Just like Somerset Maugham did in the House of Doors.
Literally
with Gerald.
Exactly like that. And the roustabout Rome openly cavorts in the gay bathhouses and bars. Though Prince von Eulenburg, in contrast, is discretion itself, his enemies are hell-bent on his downfall. Their intrigues culminate in the notorious trial of 1907, at which Magnus Hirschfeld gives expert witness that produces worldwide shock and titillation. Pausing here for a second, based on that, you would assume that is the biggest piece of this book, and that the book focuses on that trial. You would assume that. The drama of these astonishing lives play out against the rich tapestry of a period in human history in which the remnants and artifices of a moribund society contend with the rise of revolutionary insurgencies, international antagonisms, and a surge of innovation in the arts, sciences, and self-knowledge.
Long.
Mouthful.
And also, we both wrote this point down later, so I'm going to bring it up now. It describes 5 main characters. Ernst Röhm is not a main character.
He is like barely in the book.
He comes in at the end. What I think is that Martin Duberman wrote this book, and then he brought it to his publishers and was like, here you go. And then they were like, the only person in this book that a normal person would like pick it up at the bookstore and recognize the name of is Ernst Röhm, so he needs to be in the synopsis.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Fine, no problem. Do what you need to do. But he is not one of the main characters.
But let's talk about Martin Duberman a bit. So Duberman is an American historian, biographer, playwright, and gay rights activist. He's a professor of history emeritus at Lehman College in the Bronx, New York City. He's written more than 25 books, with one being a runner-up to the Pulitzer.
Oh.
The 2007 book, The Worlds of Lincoln Kirstein. Don't know who Lincoln Kirstein is.
Okay, and was that a novel?
Do you mind looking up for me, since you have your computer,
Yeah.
who won the 2000 Pulitzer?
Oh, 2007. Okay, hold on. Pulitzer Prize 2000.
As you look that up, his 2023 memoir, Reaching 90, was shortlisted for the 2024 Lambda Literary Award for Gay Memoir or Biography.
Sorry, I'm almost there.
No, you're good. Take your time. You're just the one with the laptop today.
Okay, it was not a novel, so I have to check. There are 3 separate nonfiction categories.
Oh, The Road won for novel that year, actually.
That's crazy. Oh, okay, so it was a biography, and the winner was Eden's Outcasts, the story of Louisa May Alcott and her father.
Oh, interesting. Have not read that. Yeah. Okay, well, I just, whenever it says runner-up, I like to know who won.
Me too.
I'm just curious.
Because in my head, I'm always like, I'll obviously have read the winner, and then I can compare what I think should have won, and then I've never read the winner.
No, never. Especially if it's not the fiction category.
Yeah.
He has quite a log of books. It seems like mostly nonfiction, some fiction.
Okay.
Or some kind of walking the line. You read anything else by him?
No, and I had never heard of him before either. So this is an impressive backlog.
I know, which surprised me that after reading about him, I'm like, how have I not heard about him? Very interesting.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, we did not put Jews, Queers, Germans on the list because we knew about it and we were like, this would be a great book for the pod. We discovered it in our research when we were looking up queer historical fiction.
I think this was picked because we didn't have anything on Germany at all in any season, right? No, The Book Thief was in Germany.
Yeah. Well, this is like an interesting, obviously it touches on the rise of the Nazis, especially towards the end,
but
it mostly is Weimar Germany, which is not a period we have talked about before.
And I feel like, as we've talked about, the historical fiction genre is very saturated with World War II specifically.
Definitely.
And this period of German history, I think, is vastly overlooked.
Yes.
Because of, World War II.
Understandably, yeah. No, but I agree. And I think this is a really interesting period in history.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's just get straight into it. Our judgments come based on the book and characters within the book rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on. They're all real in this.
Yeah, even though it might be closer than normal, the real versus not real figures.
There are some characters that, we do judge quite harshly, including Rome and the other Nazis in this book.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to take everything as is in this book.
Okay.
And spoilers ahead, although since this is pretty much
mostly fact-based.
Mostly fact, this is just available history.
Yeah.
I had told you when we were getting into this not to tell me your thoughts until we recorded the book.
Yes, you were like, I'm not going to look at your story graph.
No.
Like, don't talk to me about it.
And my hypothesis is you really liked this book, whereas I didn't.
I did really like it.
Yes, you are much more of a nonfiction person than I am.
Yeah, I thought that it was really well executed. I wrote this down because I knew that you would be like, ha ha ha. I wish there were footnotes.
Oh, God.
If it had footnotes, it would have been better.
Okay, this is a book, though, where footnotes would have been appropriate. Babel, they were not appropriate to have footnotes in. This one, because it is so heavily nonfiction influenced, footnotes would have worked for me here.
Mm-hmm. This is also not a book, though. I really liked it. I would not go to bat for it, like, universally, because I can see how, like, it is a little dry.
Yes.
And that is definitely present. But I did really enjoy it. I felt like the way that it was written and set up held my interest. It's like a lot of niche things. That's another point that I have. It's focused on a lot of kind of smaller events. Clearly that these men like wrote about in their primary sources. Like in the synopsis, it says like Harry Kessler's diaries and all of this.
And that was, jumping ahead to historical accuracy, that was like a big point of focus that the author pulled from.
Mm-hmm. It deals with a lot of minutia that's like slowly tipping towards this development of Nazi Germany.
What is fascinating to me is that you wrote that you think one of the strengths is that it is limited in scope, whereas I thought one of the weaknesses was that it was way too broad.
Interesting.
And I think by that, like, I completely agree with you going into the minutia of specific events. I think that was a good focal point.
Mm-hmm.
I think by too broad, I meant the period of time was
It was an extremely large period of time.
Like World War I, we flew through that.
Yeah.
Like that was like maybe 10 pages. And I'm like, that's kind of crazy because that was 10 pages is an exaggeration. It was longer than that, but it was not very detailed.
No.
While I understood the importance of having it be a longer duration, I thought it was a weakness. I thought it made the attention on each event feel like disproportionate in a way.
I think we agree on this point, kind of because of the way that it's structured. It would be hard for me to say what happened in this book.
Yeah.
The way that the timings are set up and also the things that we choose to focus on. For example, at the beginning, it talks about the Eulenburg trial.
Which is why I said when that is the one thing called out in the synopsis, I'm like, oh, this book is going to be about that trial. Because those trials were very long. Like there was that one trial, yes, but there were like multiple parts all connected to it.
Yeah. So basically, it was a libel trial. There was a newspaper that said, Prince Eulenburg is gay. Mm-hmm. He was suing for libel because he's like, I am gay, but not that I want people to know that. Yeah. And so then they had testimony from his wife, who he like didn't sleep with.
His wife was so fun. His wife was like, yeah, he doesn't fuck.
Yeah. Or it's like, he doesn't fuck me. And he told me like he would rather kill himself or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the sexologist testifies. But you don't get a lot of that otherwise. I think you get the events that are happening to these men specifically.
Yeah.
And it's not like a broader evolution. So time is passing and things are changing, obviously, but you're seeing it from this like specific perspective.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that like I see that as a strength and you see that as a weakness, but I understand, like it makes complete sense to me how those two things are the
also,
same and both valid.
I think it was maybe during the trial part where I read one of the craziest lines of dialogue I think I've read in a pod book in a long time, where they were talking about some guy, I don't know. They go, oh, that guy, the most notorious homosexual on the continent? And I'm like, how do I earn that title? Like, how does one get that title?
Who would we currently call the most notorious homosexual on the continent?
I have no idea.
I don't even, maybe like RuPaul?
I was thinking Frankie Grande. I would put him up there.
He is notorious. I will give you that. Well, obviously that's our continent too. Like, I'm not up to date on the European homosexuals.
No. But that was just like a wild statement to me. I'm like, how do you even come to that?
There was some like, for a book that, like I said, it could tend towards the dry side, there was some hilarious dialogue. Like, Martin Duberman loves to use the question mark exclamation point combo.
I love that too, because I like to do that.
He did it a lot, and he did it for characters that I think he was trying to like clearly demonstrate to the audience that like this is a character that I am portraying as like a ridiculous person.
Mm-hmm.
So like you didn't hear actually a lot from the Kaiser, but the Kaiser, when you did hear from him, had a lot of question mark exclamation point, because Martin Duberman was like, I am taking the position that this guy is stupid.
Going back to what you said about like tending towards dryness at times, for me, I think that was a result of that interesting line he was walking between fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it needed to be solely in one camp or the other. I think that line is kind of what made it dry, because the dialogue felt forced at times. And there were either blocks of pages where it was just history, or blocks of pages where they're like having lunch and talking like really heavy politics and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of the times when the characters talk to each other, it is in the form of like ideological debate.
Which, to be fair, and I wrote this in my notes as I was reading, I'm like, genuinely, I kind of do think that's what a lot of people in Europe at this time here.
I do think that's what they talked like, yeah.
Like, so I'm like, I don't think that's wrong by any means, but it did make it more dry, and it was kind of felt like it was forced.
Yeah, that's why I especially liked, maybe you will agree or disagree on this opinion, we can discuss, that one of the most readable characters was Magnus Hirschfeld, who was the sexologist. And he was so interesting to read because he was a sexologist, he was a gay man, and he was researching sexuality and homosexuality. And so obviously everything that he believes and says and researches, he believes in like wholeheartedly, and his intentions are good. Like he's not homophobic or anything like that. But he's saying all this stuff that he believed at the time, and we know today is just not how sexuality functions. Yeah. He was of the belief when he testified at the Eulenberg trial that there were 3 sexes, and it was straight men, straight women, and homosexual men.
Yes.
That they were like a completely third sex. And that is obviously not something that we believe now.
And you see that because this book does span such a long time, you see him evolve and be like, I believe that then, like, I've now found that that is not the case.
Yeah, so it's so interesting to read about a time when the things we know now, like, we take them for granted, or even the things, like, right now we think things that might not be true in the future, you know? And like, I don't know.
Like how Middlesex, like, at the time when it came out, it was, like, very revolutionary writing for the intersex community, and now it's like, well, we wouldn't necessarily, like, this is a bit more limited, and how, but it is interesting because it's still very relevant and still very foundational, but you see how things change.
Yeah, and it's important to know your history, and it's also important to be able to know that we can and have and should evolve from it. So I really liked the inclusion of Hirschfeld as a character, and he was often one of the people who was like just spouting kind of ideology when he talked, but it fit his character very well. Like, clearly he was, not clearly, because I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would believe that he was like that in real life.
He was a big strength in the book. I thought some of the other characters were a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it should have just been about Hirschfeld, and we could have gone in more depth with him.
Okay. Like, you think that maybe if Martin Duberman had chosen to make this just a novel and not been so eager to include a lot of his history, that narrowing his focus would have helped it for you?
Absolutely. And I feel like even if he went the other way and went nonfiction, I feel like nonfiction just about Hirschfeld would still touch the other lives of these men, but with more of a straightforward focus.
Okay.
Something that I want to do a comparison with is Fellow Travelers.
Oh, okay.
So, and I know we had talked about in that episode, like, the lavender scare and seeing, like, the parallels with now with, like, the government going after immigrant communities and all of this. And it's scary. And I feel like since recording that episode, things have only gotten worse here in the US. And I think this book is another very interesting parallel where you start to see society get more accepting to Hirschfeld's views. Like, he's able to do all this research. These men start coming out a bit more. And then you see this rise of conservatism and this huge rising tide. And you see, like, Rathnow went from being this revered public political figure who, when he died, it was like they had like memorial parades and stuff, and then the Nazis like banned any commemoration of him.
Yeah,
and just seeing that,
and he was murdered.
Yeah, no, he was assassinated.
Yeah,
and just seeing those parallels, and I think, like you talked about last week, actually, with the Obama era hope, and then now it's like, well, no, not anymore.
That is what happened here.
It's like that rising tide. It's scary, and like, history repeats itself, and like seeing it happen there, when I guess it's like I didn't know the minutia that of like how acceptance was growing, research was growing, all of that, and then it was just squashed, which really like set back research into sexuality and gender for decades.
Yeah. I mean, you see like Hirschfeld has this whole center that he has to shut down. He's not able to do more research. The Nazis try and come and seize all his papers. That's one of the things that I wrote. One of the benefits of this overly long time period, or not, you think it's overly long. I thought it was, it was fine. This long, objectively long time period. You see all of these men because you have so many main characters. You see all of them radicalize, but in different ways.
Yes.
For example, Rathenau becomes more socialist, more communist. Mm-hmm. Kessler becomes more anti-Semitic. He starts the book and he's not anti-Semitic, and he
gets worse,
especially during his participation in World War I, when he's like actively in the military. And then you have other characters that doesn't necessarily happen to, but you almost see them like mirroring that process. Like Hirschfeld and Rome, when they enter the story, they're already pretty radical in their respective beliefs, and they just stay that way. And Eulenberg is like a quiet conservative, and I can't even say symbolically because it just happened in real life, but I feel like in the book it works symbolically that he dies before any of this really kicks off. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see like how these people develop, and I think because there was so much emphasis on real history in this book, because it's a combination of the two, it gives nuance.
Yes.
Because it's based on these real beliefs that really changed over this long period of time.
And again, for me, maybe the long period would have worked better
if there were fewer
people. Mm-hmm. I think that was it too. I felt like stretched a little thin.
Mm-hmm. Here, I have one other thing to share that I feel like was a major theme that I don't think got the call out like in the title or in the synopsis, and it's class.
Oh, yes.
For me, honestly, the way that all of these men are connected is primarily through class and on a secondary level through their sexuality.
Yes.
Even though they're all gay men, they all handle that so differently. Some of them are closeted and repressed. Some of them are pretty open about it. Some of them have this like belief about that it's wrong. Some of them don't. Like they all approach their sexuality in such different ways, but all of them have just like this firm belief and comfort in their superiority as members of the upper class. Mm-hmm. Like even, like I said, Walter Rathenau, who reaches these heights as this foreign minister, becomes much more of a communist, and he spouts those ideals, but he never releases his hold on his own money and his own influence. Like he doesn't want to mess up his own situation.
Yes.
And none of them do.
And it's very interesting because we talk about like how heavily they talk about politics and all that, and that is so rooted in class. Poor, even middle-class Germans at this time probably would not have had that focus or would not have cared about research into this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that has a tangible impact on daily life.
Yeah. And then there are parts in the book where they're talking about, like, Britain and how they're, like, don't like Britain and their enemy. And they're like, oh, the poor, like, lower classes of Britain are just suffering. And then someone is like, are our lower classes doing, like, that much better?
Yeah. It's like, what's the difference, really?
Yeah. So that element of it was so interesting, how it's not a main focus of the book, but it's so tied into everything else that you can't overlook it. Mm-hmm. Like it has to be present.
Yes.
And I thought that was also interesting, how that was like the thing that changed the least over all the periods of time.
Yeah. And I have something interesting to say about that during historical accuracy also.
Ooh, good. I can't wait.
Yeah. And then you have another note that I very much agree with, which is like the structure of this book. First part is really centralized around the Eulenberg affair. The last part is obviously the rise of Nazi power. Mm-hmm. The middle part,
it's just kind of stuff happening. Like I said, it's hard for me to look back and be like, what happened in this book?
It's like a little muddling.
Yeah. There's some stuff with their personal relationships.
I didn't care about that. I really didn't care about their personal relationships, especially Kessler. I did not give a shit about him going on bicycle rides with his boy toy. Like, I just was not interested.
Yeah. There was not like a central thing for the middle to revolve around.
Yeah.
And when we say
my issue
also. Well, and also when we say the first part, the second part, the third part, that's just kind of us dividing the book into chunks of how we read it. I think it was like 8 parts or something.
Yeah, it's not split up like that necessarily. So
it's kind of just divided by like time period in terms of years, which was fine. Like I had no problem with that.
Agreed.
All right.
Yeah, I think that was part of the issue, just because like The last part especially was so interesting. The beginning was really interesting, and the middle just got very muddling for me.
Like I said, I enjoyed the way that this book was laid out, but there weren't big events to attach it to.
Yes.
I have one more thing that I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
So in the very end, this is in the author's note.
Oh.
So Martin Duberman quotes Hilary Mantel, who's an author. She won the Booker twice. She was in that like top 100 books of the 21st century that the New York Times did multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
She did a lot of research. She wrote a trilogy of books about Thomas Cromwell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was her thing. So she did a lot of research. And then this is the quote that Martin Duberman includes. For me, it is about using everything that is there and using the gaps in the record, figuring out why the gaps might be there. I try to make it up based on what is in the record. So even my wildest speculations will have a root somewhere. And I just felt like that was interesting to include because A, he's clearly having to do a lot of that here, Martin Duberman. Like, you're not going to have every single piece of information about these men's private lives. But also that's kind of what we hope authors do, like what we've been talking about ever since Hamnet.
That is like the anti-Philippa Gregory.
Remember she loves to make shit up.
She just put in every conspiracy theory about Queen Elizabeth. Or not Queen Elizabeth, excuse me, Anne Boleyn.
Yeah.
And about the birth of Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah,
and like all of that.
About how Anne Boleyn went to like a witch.
Yeah.
To make sure that she could have a baby.
It was all correct.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was just like, that is an interesting philosophy for like, you to say, even my best guesses are educated guesses.
Yeah, and I respect that.
Yeah, so because this is like a novel and a history, he's not just like using artistic license, as we often say, but he's using, you know, his research to inform what he doesn't know. So like, we can't say it's all accurate, but we can say he's doing his best.
I think in just biggest summary for me, because I think we're getting about ready to move into historical accuracy, for me, this like mass genre didn't really work. I think it was just maybe too many people, maybe too long time period. I don't really have a diagnosis for like, this is what would have made it better for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was a little muddling for me. And then the parts that were like the fiction parts just felt dry.
I think that just the way that he intended to shape this book, all the things for him that were like foundationally important are just like probably not for you. Mm-hmm. Like I think if you read another book that was kind of written in this combination style, you might like it. Like I don't think this is the death knell for you in like fiction, nonfiction.
However, I am very glad we included this one.
Yes.
I think it's very interesting and just an interesting point of discussion, and like the things that worked for you that were like just not the things that worked for me.
Yeah. It stands out. It's an interesting book that I am glad that we have read and discussed.
So if you're a listener who has an interest particularly in LGBTQ history, I think this is a really good one for you.
And also, Martin Duberman has a ton of other books.
And a lot of them seem to be focused on LGBTQ history. I would look into him.
Yeah.
He's got a lot going on.
Now, I would love to hear your historical accuracy.
Yes. So we have 5 cited main characters, whether or not we agree with that. So I kind of got a little bit more history on each of them. A lot of this was in the book, maybe not presented like the most clearly, or not even clearly, the most emphasized aspect of their lives.
Yeah, I was going to say, this does sound like one that would be hard to research, because it was like what we said about Codename Verity, like, Elizabeth Wheaton clearly knows more about planes than we do.
Yeah, I'm like, me looking this stuff up isn't really going to
It's not going to change anything, yeah.
It's more so just additional context that might not have been as emphasized in the book, or for our listeners who are not going to read this book. Prince Philip von Eulenburg, diplomat and, quote, intimate friend of the Kaiser. He was accused of homosexuality by Hardin in a series of attacks that was never proven, but the scandal did really damage the monarchy's prestige. The Hardin-Eulenburg affair was the name, so it was a series of libel trials, not just the one that was shown in the book. It was a series of them. Eulenburg wasn't really a participant in all of them, but they all kind of tied back to this issue. So the trials were really meant and really drawn out as a means to attain political goals, which was attacking the Kaiser, attacking the reputation of the monarchy. So kind of just had a lot of political motivations at the expense of Eulenburg and his own reputation.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like he did anything wrong.
No.
I mean, like, he was mean to his wife, but, like, a lot of straight men were mean to their wives.
Like, back in the day, you know. But, yeah, so that's kind of what I have on there. The goals of it were primarily attacking the reputation of the monarchy, less so to do with Eulenburg himself. Hirschfeld, German physician, sexologist, LGBTQ advocate. His German citizenship was eventually revoked by the Nazi government, which was displayed in the book. He was beaten by fascists in 1920. His institute was looted, and many of his books were burned in 1933. So books at his institute, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
He was then forced into exile in France, which was ultimately where he died a few years later.
Mm-hmm.
I think he died, I want to say, like 37. He died, something like that.
Oh.
1937, not age-wise.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how old he was.
Older than that, I think.
Maybe 60s, 50s. It, like, wasn't that old.
Mm-hmm.
But he was the first to prevent statistical evidence that homosexualities were more likely to commit or attempt suicide, which was really interesting.
Oh, and that's still, like, something that we talk about.
Yeah, especially, I think, with, like, transgender individuals.
Yeah.
But he was the first to look into that in that research. So he played a prominent role in the Hardin-Eulenburg affair, where he testified that what Hardin had written was true. Like, that was his big testimony.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that homosexuality was part of the plan of nature and creation, just like normal love. So again, that was more of his earlier thoughts of, like, you know, normal love being heterosexual, which is separate, but both completely true and valid. Later, he kind of moves to, you know, less of this dichotomy. Or, I guess, trichotomy, since it was like a third sex. Anyways. His Institute of Sexual Research opened in 1919, which I guess I should have said before all the stuff about it being looted and burned and all of that. But yeah, so it ran for like almost 20 years.
Wow.
So it ran for a very long time, maybe like 15 years. But yeah, lots of great research came out of it. And of course, you know, the rise of Nazism really put a stop to a lot of that research continue, which is unfortunate to think how much further he could have progressed. And not just him, but, you know, the scholars working at this institute. Harry Kessler gave less of a fuck about him than anyone else. He was a homosexual diplomat, and he called for sexual liberation. He emigrated to France during the Nazi regime. However, it was pretty much said he would have been fine because of his class.
Yeah.
Like, it was a self-exile. He could have stayed and not been persecuted for his homosexuality because he was a very high-class individual.
Well, there's also a section in the book where, like, he gets accused by, like, a radical, like, Nazi of being, like, secretly a Jew. And his response is like, well, I'm a count, so you know that I'm not a Jewish.
Exactly. So I think he was the one where you see class play the biggest role.
I think so, too.
And class would have, had he chosen, would have been his saving grace in Germany. He had tons of extensive diaries, which were heavily relied upon for this book. That is something the author says in the author's note as well.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell.
And it's also very obvious because a lot of, like, the dialogue pieces and conversation had Kessler there, and he played a big role in it, which I imagine would be easier to fill in the gaps with him relying on these diaries.
Okay, yeah.
Walter Rathenau, Foreign Minister of Germany from February 1922 until his assassination that June. So he really was not Foreign Minister that long, but he had played a very influential political role before then. So his death was followed by a national mourning because he was assassinated by radicals, and there was widespread demonstrations against counter-revolutionary terrorism. So kind of this death for a little bit, like, gave power back to the monarchy and against radicals and against fascism. Not for very long, but for, like, a moment in time there. So all commemorations of Rathenau were banned under the Nazi regime. So they, like, desecrated his grave, like, they no longer had any memorials to him, any of that. He was a proponent of radical assimilation of German Jews into German society, and this was something that was really displayed in the book, was that he was very self-anti-Semitic, even though he was Jewish.
It was in the book. It was very interesting.
We didn't touch on that at all, but that was a very interesting point of that he was just such a strong proponent of assimilation and integration into society.
Oh, yeah.
And he was deeply closeted. Even when I was, like, looking up stuff about him, there really wasn't anything on his sexuality there. That's one of the lesser pieces touched on him in the book as well. Ernst Röhm, since we did not talk about him at all, he was the co-founder and leader of the SA until he was murdered in 1934 during the Night of Long Knives, which was when the entire SA leadership was purged by the SS, which was led by Himmler and Heydrich, as Hitler came to see them all as rivals and as threats, as Hitler's paranoia was really growing. He had aligned with Hitler as he was, like, a young rising political figure. From 1925 to 1930, though, he'd broken with Hitler to serve as an advisor to the Bolivian army.
That's so random.
Which was very random. But then eventually Hitler was like, no, I want him back. I want him to lead the SA. So he came back. Opposition to Röhm grew as his homosexuality became more public knowledge.
And he was not secretive about it.
No, and he was not secretive, and he had such a secure place in the Nazi regime that he was not murdered for his homosexuality. He was murdered because of the SA leadership purge.
Because he was in the way.
But, however, a factor leading against him and leading to him being seen as a rival were rumors starting that him and Hitler were like in a relationship. He was one of only like a couple officials who used a nickname for Hitler. And then you know how some languages have like the informal you versus the formal you? He was one of the only leadership in the Nazi regime to be able to use the informal you with Hitler.
That is very interesting.
So that's why there was a lot of speculation. However, I don't think anything was ever really like proven or claimed about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's just a little more about each of these men.
Wow, great context.
Yeah, so I think we can just kind of kick it over now to the star calculator.
All right, I'll go first.
Great.
Historical accuracy, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on. Originality, I'm also going to go 5.
Wow.
I mean, I just think that this concept, this combination of characters, this time period, I'm giving it a 5. Characters, 4. I liked them. I liked the ones that we got. I felt like they were different. There were a lot of characters, kind of in the she who became the sun kind of way.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was pretty clear to me who I needed to remember and who I didn't. So I like the balance of that was fine with me. Pros, I'm going to do something I don't like to do because I feel like I have to and do it half. It's a 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's not quite a 3 and it's not quite a 4.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, it gave me what I needed. And vibes, 4. Point off for the somewhat dryness, but like I really enjoyed it and this is like my bag. Like this is my type of book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a 4.3 and on Storygraph I gave it a 4.25.
Wow. So you would say that's fine leaning 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for historical accuracy, I gave it a 5. How could you not?
Absolutely.
How could you not? Originally, I gave it a 4. I liked the mix of genre. I like that it's a time period that's less focused on.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed that. Characters, I gave it a 3. I mean, obviously, they were very, very thoroughly researched. I don't know. Some of them I wanted more of. Some of them I wanted less of.
I'm not surprised to see you give it a 3 for that.
Pros, I gave it a 2, and that's where I took off for the dryness. I thought it was just very unbalanced in terms of just like history paragraphs, super dry dialogue.
Yeah.
And I do think it hit its stride, especially towards the end, but like should not take as long. And then vibes, I gave it a 2. I think especially when it started to get like very muddling in the middle, I was like, oh, well, whatever. And that is a 3.2. I want to say I gave it like a 3.25. So
it's like a fine?
Yeah, it's a fine. I recognize that it's not really my genre.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like, I don't think that's against the book. I think that's more so I'm just not the biggest fan. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. And if I do, it's not history-heavy nonfiction.
I feel like in the beginning of the season, we were really going, like, heavy on the flops. Towards the end, we've been heavy on, like, the fines. And not, like, a really, like, middle-of-the-road, like, 3 fine.
Yeah.
We've given a lot of ratings like that.
This is like my second one in a row.
Yeah.
For sure. And probably before that, I don't even remember. No, before that was Dead Dead Girls and I hated that.
Oh, yeah.
And then The House of Doors, which was also awful.
Big flop. Anyway.
What are we reading for our finale?
We are doing what I feel like is a classic generally, not only of the LGBTQ historical fiction genre. We are reading The Color Purple by Alice Walker.
Yes. And then we will also be going through our full season ranking.
And I've kind of agonized over mine a little bit. I have it set, but there were some that I was not sure where they were going to go.
Yeah, I feel like I have some that I said were higher, but like Gwen and Art, I liked it at the time. And in hindsight, I'm like, that was kind of
whatever.
You know, it's fine. But yes, I'm excited to be discussing that with you next week.
Yes. So in the meantime, please follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at @fiverflop_pod. And join our Storygraph reading challenge before the season is over.
However, you can always complete it after the season is over.
That's true. You can also join the season 1, 2, and 3 reading challenges while you're at it.
And as I always say, if you feel like reading 48 children's books, that's the season for you, season 3. All right. We also have a recommendation form in our bio in case you have thoughts on what we should be reading for an upcoming season, or you can shoot us an email, fiverfloppodcast@gmail.com.
And in the meantime,
happy reading!
Bye!